Some folks seem pretty upset over this Connecticut Sun sale situation. I can't say I am one of those folks that is pissed off about it, but here is some of the reaction that you've seen. Senator Richard Blumenthal, WNBA put a full court press on blocking the Sun from staying in Connecticut. Deeply harmful to fans that live and breathe basketball. DOJ should investigate and stop such anti-competitive interference. Look, let's unpack this for a second, right? So the Connecticut Sun, we're going to be sold to one of the owners of the Celtics, right? Like, that was...
DeWanna Bonner didn't just hear the headlines. She absorbed the disrespect. The Connecticut Sun, a franchise she gave everything to, was suddenly being treated like a disposable asset, while the league shut down the one opportunity that could have secured its future. Like Caitlin Clark. The veteran watched as the WNBA leadership blocked a massive deal that could have anchored the team in the region. This wasn't strategy. It felt personal to the players and fans who built the franchise from nothing.
Let's unpack this for a second, right? So the Connecticut Sun, we're going to be sold to one of the owners of the Celtics, right? Like, that was agreed to. And that I get. Like, Boston, WNBA team, Boston sports fans, region remains the same, even if it's a different location. Like, I understand, I guess, being pissed that didn't go down. As far as the Connecticut Sun themselves, I don't think that team had much juice relative to the rest of the league. Let's just be real about it. It was not a destination.
Picture a historic $325 million bid ready to reshape the organization. A Boston Celtics ownership figure was prepared to step in and elevate the Sun into a major market powerhouse. For Bonner and her teammates, it meant visibility, resources, and legitimacy at a new level. Instead of approval, the league responded with a firm rejection. Their reasoning was that Boston was bypassing the official expansion process, even though the fanbase already existed and was hungry for a better product. It
was not a destination. It was not one of those teams, you know, if you're another team, you get excited about playing, you're circling on the calendar. And the facilities were not up to par. They're sharing courts for kids' birthday parties and stuff like that. And in this new CBA, that's part of it, is making sure all the facilities are up to par. So just keeping it status quo, I get why that wasn't the case. Just even moving, somewhere in Connecticut, Hartford was another suggestion. But with the ownership change could have been the upgrades. So that's one argument.
Behind the curtain, conditions in Connecticut have been far from professional in today's era. While other teams are upgrading rapidly, the Sun are still operating in shared facilities that barely meet standards. Selling a future to elite talent becomes difficult when practices are delayed for public events. That gap in professionalism is exactly why veteran players are frustrated. They see the Caitlin Clark boom bringing massive attention, yet they remain stuck in a setup that feels outdated and inadequate.
Putting in that bid. But you can see the other side of it as well if you're, I think, fairly looking at it. The WNBA's case would be that they tried to skip the line, more or less. That's essentially what they said. Sun ownership, however, initially reached a deal last summer to sell the team for a record $325 million, which, by the way, needs to be appreciated. I think that the price here is $300 million to go to Houston, to relaunch the Comets, which I haven't even mentioned up until this point. And there's some history there, of course. But just the fact that the Connecticut Sun are selling for upwards of...
Instead of embracing Boston, the league is shifting focus to a $300 million revival of the Houston Comets. To many, it looks less like growth and more like rewarding familiar NBA ownership circles. The Fertitta Group is getting the opportunity, and while Houston has history, it leaves Connecticut supporters feeling ignored. For Bonner and others, watching their team's future redirected to a dormant market instead of strengthening an existing one is hard to justify.
Which I haven't even mentioned up until this point. And there's some history there, of course. But just the fact that the Connecticut Sun are selling for upwards of $300 million is one of the surest signs of growth of the league that there's been, right? Like, I think they might have been bought for $10 million or something along those lines. That's an explosive growth. And it's one of the arguments I made going into the CBA as to how you can say, where the trajectory of the WNBA is headed beyond just simple revenue, net revenue, game in, game out.
The situation has escalated so much that political figures are now involved. Senator Richard Blumenthal openly criticized the process, pushing to stop the relocation and even suggesting federal investigation into possible anti-competitive actions. When government officials step into a sports dispute, it signals a serious breakdown. This has grown beyond basketball into a larger debate about control and fairness within the league.
Teams that have put bids in, that have gotten rewarded for doing so. WNBA effectively blocked the deal from progressing, holding firm that relocation decisions are made by the WNBA Board of Governors and not by individual teams, and that cities have already gone through the expansion process, which included Houston. Those cities have priority over Boston. And we know we're getting Cleveland. We know we're getting Philadelphia. Obviously, the tempo, Toronto and Portland are entering this year. And now you're going back to Houston. Now the cynic could say it's the Fertitta family, right? And the NBA rewarding one of its own because...
From the WNBA's perspective, the rules are clear: expansion must follow a structured path. They argue Boston didn't meet those requirements, while cities like Houston, Toronto, and Portland did. But to players, that explanation feels selective. It appears like a convenient way to prevent a powerful market from forming too quickly. In their eyes, the Sun's value is being overlooked simply because it doesn't align with the league's long-term plan.
Priority over Boston. And we know we're getting Cleveland. We know we're getting Philadelphia. Obviously, the tempo, Toronto and Portland are entering this year. And now you're going back to Houston. Now the cynic could say it's the Fertitta family, right? And the NBA rewarding one of its own because of the Houston Rockets connection. The Sun will play one more season in Connecticut before relocating in 2027. So I sit on the side of, I understand why the Sun are being moved. I understand why this is happening.
The financial side only intensifies the frustration. The Sun were originally purchased for a fraction of their current worth, somewhere around $10 million. Now valuations are soaring past $30 million. That growth came from years of player effort and loyalty. With the Caitlin Clark era driving new revenue, players feel the league is controlling who benefits. They see rising value but no say in how that value is used.
Connecticut before relocating in 2027. So I sit on the side of, I understand why the Sun are being moved. I understand why this is happening. I like the idea personally of a team in Boston more than a team in Houston. But the moral of the story is the demand. And you had teams that have put in for these bids, like Houston, and they're getting rewarded, and other teams wanting to get in on the WNBA business. And ultimately, I think that's...
This entire ownership drama is unfolding right as the league heads toward critical collective bargaining agreement talks. Players aren't just asking for higher pay, they want influence over how their teams are run. When the league shuts down a sale to a high-profile Boston-backed ownership group, it sends a loud and clear signal. Player opinions come second to the authority of the Board of Governors. DeWanna Bonner and other experienced voices understand that this moment could shape the future of free agency. If the league dictates where franchises go, then real player freedom doesn't exist. There's also a growing narrative that the Connecticut Sun never had enough pull to stay relevant. Critics argue the team wasn't a true destination, that it didn't attract top players or national attention. That kind of criticism only motivates competitors like Bonner even more. She spent years helping build the Sun into a consistent contender, yet the league continues to treat the franchise like it's temporary. Blocking the Boston opportunity only reinforces the idea that the WNBA doesn't view the Sun as a top-tier brand, despite their results and serious investor interest. Now the timeline adds even more tension. With a potential relocation set for 2027, the clock is ticking in a way that feels unavoidable. Imagine being part of a team knowing it has an expiration date. That reality creates a strange atmosphere where every home game feels overshadowed by uncertainty. It damages more than finances, it erodes identity and culture. Loyal fans in Connecticut are essentially being told their dedication is being exchanged for a new market that hasn't proven anything yet. The claims of anti-competitive behavior are becoming harder to ignore. By rejecting the Boston-backed deal, especially one connected to the Boston Celtics ownership circle, the league opens itself to serious criticism. This isn't just about expansion anymore, it looks like decision-making influenced by internal politics. When a qualified buyer with resources and credibility is turned away, it raises questions about consistency and long-term stability. It suggests that growth is being tightly controlled instead of allowed to evolve naturally. Everyone recognizes that Caitlin Clark has shifted perception, dismisses years of effort from players who helped establish that identity. The planned move toward Houston is also being viewed by some as a move that benefits Tillman Fertitta, owner of the Houston Rockets. That connection raises uncomfortable questions about how closely the WNBA still aligns with NBA ownership interests. While the league promotes independence and growth, decisions like this suggest those ties still influence outcomes. For players, it can feel like they're being repositioned to serve ownership priorities instead of the fan base. There's a clear contradiction in the franchise's valuation as well. The Sun are reportedly worth hundreds of millions, yet their current location is being labeled insufficient. That value didn't appear out of nowhere, it was built by players and fans over time. Now that same value is being used as justification to Philadelphia are being considered, while Portland and Toronto are already progressing. But it raises a fundamental question: why prioritize brand new markets over a proven team that simply needs better infrastructure? By forcing the Sun into uncertainty or relocation, the league risks stalling a team that is already competitive. The fans are at the heart of this situation. Connecticut supporters have remained loyal through the league's toughest years. Now, just as the WNBA gains traction, they are being told their team could be taken away. That disconnect is becoming a serious public relations issue. The league is effectively betting on a new audience in Houston while risking the one that has already proven its commitment. Reviving the Houston Comets brand carries history, but history alone doesn't guarantee future success. The league has evolved significantly since the Comets' original run. Trying to recreate past dominance by dismantling a current contender feels risky. It suggests uncertainty about building new legacies rather than confidence in existing ones. At the center of all of this is the Board of Governors, the group with ultimate authority over these decisions. Their ability to approve or reject ownership changes effectively shapes the league's direction. But that level of control is starting to face pushback from players who want more influence. It creates a system that feels less competitive and more controlled from the top. Facility standards have also become part of the argument. The league is pushing for better arenas and training environments, but critics say they haven't provided realistic pathways for teams like the Sun to meet those expectations. Instead, those shortcomings are being used as justification for relocation. To players, it feels like a setup where failure becomes inevitable. This situation has turned the Sun into a symbol of the league's internal conflict. Growth is accelerating, but control remains centralized. Every time Bonner steps on the court, she represents a franchise caught in that tension. That pressure can be motivating, but it also adds a burden players shouldn't have to carry. The argument that Boston was skipping the process doesn't hold up when considering urgency. If an investor is ready to spend and provide elite resources, delaying that opportunity could be costly. The league's slow expansion model clashes with the fast-paced growth happening right now. By the time Boston gets its chance, the moment may have passed. In the end, this isn't just about one franchise changing hands. It's a defining moment for the WNBA as a whole. It highlights a growing divide between the players driving the game forward and the executives managing its structure. Bonner's frustration reflects a deeper issue within the system. As 2027 approaches, the league faces a critical choice. It can either evolve with the momentum it has created or risk undermining the very foundation that made its success possible.